I actually saw them tearing off their tank helmets where they were receiving orders on their own military net and using their mobile phones. And in many cases, they were phoning home because they come from military families. They wanted to know from their fathers what they should do. And, of course, they were told you must not shoot on your fellow citizens. And that, I think, was the actual moment when the Mubarak regime broke. Or if we look back historically, that's what we'll believe, because I think it is broken, it's finished, whatever Mr. Mubarak may dream about in his sort of pantomime world. And I think that was a very critical moment. Now, of course, the great drama is this. The Americans want the military to control the situation and get rid of Mubarak. But then are we going to have Mubarak's vice president? Are we going to have an Egypt led by the former intelligence officer for Mubarak, chief negotiator with Israel, Israel's favorite Egyptian, running this country and running the army to run this country? And we're going to have just another benevolent military dictator running another army which runs another country in the Arab world, which is basically what we've had all along. So the protesters, who tend to be about 24 hours behind in working this sort of thing out, they're after all tired and they're trying to stay alive and so on, they're going to have to struggle hard to make sure that the political future belongs in their hands and not in another bunch of generals who grew up under Mubarak and got tired of his rule. Because the army is against Mubarak, which I think it pretty much is now, does not mean that the army is going to support wonderful, free, open elections in Egypt. It would be nice to think so, but I can't think of an army that's ever actually done that in history, certainly not in Egypt. So I think that these are the questions that are going to come up, and it's been interesting watching the behavior. I mean, I'm up right next to the tanks and, you know, where stones are falling and so on. Yesterday, for example, a young soldier was standing in tears as the stones went in both directions past him. And he was obviously torn apart by what he should do between his duty as a soldier and his duty as an Egyptian. And in the end, he jumped down from the tank right in front of me, crying and throwing his arms around one of the protesters. And that, you know, that was a very significant moment, I thought, in this. You know, if big history is made on the streets, this was a little tiny microcosm of what was actually going over. The army are against Mubarak. I think that's what's going to come across in the next 24 hours.
That was Robert Fisk, the longtime Middle East correspondent of the Independent newspaper in London. He's based in Beirut, but of course speaking to us from the streets of Cairo. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. As we are